Have you ever stopped to think about how every single cell in your body gets what it needs to survive every single second? Well, the answer is this massive, incredible network called the circulatory system. So if you're studying this stuff and you really want to nail the key concepts for your exams, you are in exactly the right place. We're about to take a tour through angiology, breaking it all down piece by piece to make sure you're ready for any question they throw at you.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute basics. What even is angiology? Then we'll get into the infrastructure, all the vessels that act as the system's plumbing. After that, we'll check out the engine room, the heart, and figure out its electrical grid and the main traffic routes. And finally, we'll follow the return trip through the veins and lymphatics. It's a really logical flow, designed to build your knowledge from the ground up.
All right, let's jump right in with stop number 1. What in the world is angiology?
Okay, so at its core, angiology is just the branch of anatomy that deals with all the organs of circulation. That's it. It's the complete blueprint for that incredible network we're talking about. Every pipe, every pump, all the fluid that keeps the body up and running. Nice and simple.
The whole setup has 3 main parts. You've got the heart, which is our pump, the blood vessels, which are the highways for blood, and then the lymph vessels, which kind of run in parallel and handle tissue fluid. Now, here's a really crucial way to organize your thinking. Angiology has 2 main divisions. You've got the blood vascular system and you've got the lymphatic system. We're going to cover both. So now that we've got the big picture, let's zoom in a little bit. Let's look at the actual infrastructure of this system, the vessels themselves. You can really think of these as the intricate network of pipes that makes everything else work.
Okay, pay attention here, because this slide is pure gold for exam questions. You absolutely have to know the difference between arteries and veins. Here's how you remember it. A arteries carry blood away from the heart. They've got thick, muscular walls to handle all that pressure, and they don't have valves. Veins, on the other hand, carry blood back toward the heart. They have thinner walls, and most of them have valves to stop blood from flowing backward. And here it is, the classic exception they love to put on tests. The pulmonary artery carries deoxygenated blood away from the heart, and the pulmonary veins carry oxygenated blood toward it. You got to burn that into your brain.
Now, if we could zoom in on an artery, like microscopically, you'll see it's built in 3 different layers, or coats. These are key terms for histology. So on the inside, you've got the tunica intima. It's a super smooth lining so blood can flow easily. The middle layer, the tunica media, that's the muscle and elastic part that gives the artery its strength and lets it stretch. And then on the outside, you have the tunica adventitia, which is a tough, protective wrapping of connective tissue. Now here's a concept that explains why the whole system is so resilient: anastomoses. Basically, these are just connections between nearby arteries. Think of them like natural detours or backup roads built right into the system. If one main road gets blocked, there's still another way for blood to get where it needs to go. This is an absolutely vital protective feature. All right, we've looked at the pipes, so now it's time to meet the powerful engine that's pushing blood through them all. Let's head into the engine room, the heart. Before we even get inside the heart, let's talk about its protective case. The heart sits inside the pericardium, which is this 2-layered sac. The outer fibrous layer is really tough. It's like a perfectly sized bag that stops the heart from stretching out too much. The inner serous layer, well, it creates a bit of fluid that acts like a lubricant, so the heart can beat millions and millions of times without any friction. Okay, this slide is a fantastic cheat sheet of the heart's anatomy, and it's just loaded with exam-worthy details. So let's follow the blood. Deoxygenated or impure blood comes into the right atrium. See that feature, the fossa ovalis? That's what's left over from a bypass we all had as a fetus. From there, blood goes through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. Notice the moderator band here? That's a little muscle that keeps the ventricle from overfilling. Then the right ventricle pumps that blood out to the lungs. Once it's got oxygen, it comes back to the left atrium, and then goes through the bicuspid or mitral valve into the left ventricle. And you can see right there, the wall is way thicker, because this is the chamber that has to pump blood to the entire body. It's the real powerhouse. And here's a little fun fact for you, a great piece of comparative anatomy. In older cows, you can actually find 2 little bones, called the os cordis, right in the fibrous ring at the base of the aorta. It's just a cool reminder that while the basic plan is the same, evolution comes up with some interesting tweaks. So we've got the physical structure of the pump and the pipes down, but how does the heart actually know when to beat? And where does all that blood go once it leaves? Well, that brings us to our next section, where we'll look at the heart's electrical wiring and the 2 big circuits of circulation.
A heartbeat is really just a perfectly timed electrical event. It all starts at the SA node, which is the heart's natural pacemaker. It fires off an impulse that makes the atria contract. That signal then hits the AV node,
which, and this is key, pauses for just a split second. Then, it sends the signal down the AV bundle, and finally the impulse spreads through the terminal network, triggering that big, powerful squeeze of the ventricles. Knowing that sequence is totally fundamental.
So that blood travels in two distinct loops. First, you have the pulmonary circulation. That's the short, low-pressure loop that goes from the right ventricle to the lungs to pick up oxygen and back to the left atrium. Then you have the systemic circulation. That's the big, high-pressure loop from the left ventricle out to the entire body to drop off oxygen and then back to the right atrium.
We just mentioned that big systemic circuit. So now let's zoom in and travel down the main superhighway that leaves the heart on that circuit, the aorta.
The aorta is like a giant tree trunk with all these crucial branches feeding the whole body. It really helps to learn them by region. So the very first branches, right at the base of the aorta, are the coronary arteries. They feed the heart muscle itself. Makes sense, right? The pump needs its own fuel. Then, coming off the big arch, you get the brachiocephalic trunk, which supplies the head and front legs. As the aorta travels down through the chest, it sends off thoracic branches. And once it's in the abdomen, you get major branches like the coeliac axis for the digestive organs and the renal arteries for the kidneys. Knowing these big branches by region is a huge help.
That is a whole lot of branches, which, it kind of makes you wonder, how does the body make absolutely sure that its most important organ, the brain, gets a constant, uninterrupted supply of blood?
The answer is another brilliant piece of engineering. In a lot of animals, there's a capillary network called the rete mirabili cerebri that helps out. But the really key structure, especially for us, is the circle of Willis. This is basically an arterial ring at the base of the brain that's fed by multiple arteries. It's a perfect example of those anastomoses we talked about earlier. It creates all these different pathways, so if one route gets blocked, the others can pick up the slack and keep the brain supplied with blood. It's an incredible safety feature.
So we followed the blood on its journey out, dropping off oxygen everywhere. But that's really only half the story. For our final section, let's look at how all that blood and other fluids make the trip back to the heart through the veins and that parallel system, the lymphatics.
Okay, the main return highways are the vena cava. The anterior vena cava collects blood from the head, neck, and front limbs. The posterior vena cava drains pretty much everything else. Both of them dump right into the right atrium. But now look at the portal vein. This one's special. It gathers up all the nutrient-rich blood from the stomach and intestines, but instead of going straight back to the heart, it makes a pit stop at the liver. This lets the liver process all those nutrients and detoxify things before that blood re-enters circulation. It's a critical step.
Now let's switch over to that parallel system, the lymphatics. A key structure you need to know is the cisterna chyli. Remember, lymph is the fluid that seeps out of your capillaries into your tissues. Well, the cisterna chyli is basically a collecting sac that gathers up all that lymph from your lower body and your gut. You can think of it as the main holding tank before the lymph starts its final journey home.
And that final journey happens through the thoracic duct. This is the main lymphatic pipeline in the body. It starts at that cisterna chyli, runs up through the chest, collecting more lymph as it goes, and then it empties everything right back into the venous system, completing that whole fluid cycle.
And just like that, our tour is done. We've seen the pump, the pipes, the wiring, the return routes, the whole shebang. So to wrap it all up and tie it all together, think about this. What is the single most important design feature we talked about that makes this whole complex system so incredibly tough and resilient to blockages? Think about those backup routes. The answer is really the key to understanding the elegance of the whole system. Thanks for coming along on this explainer.